Hi guys, it's Claire Matara from the Amazon region, and it's the 26th of November 2024. And I'm upstairs in my funny house, which is a dark place at the moment, and it's under a whole roof of leaves. Today I want to read a little bit of diary entries from more than 50 years ago. It was end of January 1971. I was 21 years old. I had never been on a plane before, and I had been away from my family only rarely. And now I was flying over the Syrian desert. Endless rows of sand dunes were rippling down below. Small clouds cast their shadows over the wide landscape. They were hanging just below the plane like puffs of white cotton. My friend had travelled by boat to Australia. This took 6 weeks. Only 1 year and 7 months ago. Now that trip was not available to me anymore, and I had to take the Boeing 747, which took 36 hours to fly from Amsterdam to Sydney. We had just stopped in Istanbul, and I had time to look around at the airport bazaar, which sold many trinkets and hookahs. It was all rather colourful and interesting. The world was so big when you flew over it. I imagined tiny camels labouring through all those sand dunes. I peered hard through the moulded window pane, trying to get a glimpse of habitation or human activity. Was that an oasis or just a shadow of those little clouds? It was so hard to tell. Coming from small, green, lush Holland, this was a shock to my sense of reality. I dozed off until we suddenly went down again. Going down was much harder than taking off. I tried to bend over my knees, as told in the handbook. It helped very little. It was my first flight. Somebody behind me was throwing up in the provided bag. I reminded myself how much I was enjoying this adventure. The moment passed and we were on the ground in Bahrain. The doors were opened and we were told to stay where we were. Foreign-looking workers entered and sprayed us all over with a misty powder. We were told to disembark and we walked down a stairway to the tarmac. Airport staff was loitering underneath, trying to look up the skirts of us women. Then the military took over. Men with guns herded us into a small shelter along the runway. We were getting a little shaky by now. This was different from the bazaar at Istanbul. We had to leave our hand baggage on the plane, and everything was getting searched. It seemed like we were in that shed of mud brick with the tin roof for a long time. This must be a very hard place to live, I thought. So much unkindness. Thank God we were taken back to the plane with the military. I was glad to be back in my seat and find my luggage intact, even if we had not been able to relax and enjoy the country. I was grateful to leave Bahrain. This was January 1971. Bahrain became independent from British rule in August 1971. So it was about 6 months before they became independent. A wave of hot, humid air struck me when we came down the rickety stairs in Bombay. It was past midnight there, but the place was lit up from all angles. Workers were around the stairs, but they were too worn out to worry about us. We were crammed into a few open, wobbly buses and driven to the lounge, where we could remain while the plane was serviced. Everything I touched was sticky and humid and warm. The rails on the bus, the walls, the airport seats. But by now I was getting too tired to take in a lot. After we got back in the plane and were sprayed again with the disinfecting mist, I was ready to curl up on my seat as much as possible. As we climbed back into the sky, I could see the many lights along the busy Indian coast dwindling until darkness enveloped us. I think we stopped in Colombo and then in Kuala Lumpur, but the memory gets rather sketchy there. I snatched sleep whenever I could in between the regular landings and times in airport lounges. Now we were approaching Australia from the northwest. The pale morning was just washing over the Indian Ocean. We were getting served coffee. I craned my neck to catch the first sight of land. There was the coast, finally, the country that was to become my second home. It still took some time to reach Perth, but when we got there it was a welcome sight. People in fresh shorts and colourful blouses and shirts were waving from the roof of the airport building. We just wandered in a straggling line to the open glass doors. I was a transit passenger, so there was no one to wave to me there. But I didn't mind. I was in Australia. Later that day, there was one more flight to Sydney, and we arrived fairly late. I had missed my flight to Adelaide and had to spend the night in a hotel. My guiding officer rearranged things, and I was shuttled off to the Wentworth Hotel, one of the higher buildings in Sydney. "You can go and visit the city tonight," the officer said as he took me to my hotel room. "But you must be ready for an early departure to Adelaide." There were taxis everywhere, and life was brisk and busy. I did not think I would want to roam around by myself in such a big, strange place, so I decided to stay in the hotel. The 13th floor was named 14th. This is where I was ushered into a very large curved room with 2 king-size beds and a huge bathroom. I did not go anywhere, but slept, rolled up small in the large bed. The Wentworth Hotel later on was just a small building. After that time, this is 50 years ago, after that time a lot of skyscrapers came up over the top of it. But then it was one of the biggest buildings. The next morning the sun came blazing through the curtains. I opened them to discover that the city looked pink under a very blue sky. Everything was brilliant, beyond belief. In the distance was the harbour, very blue as well. There was a knock on my door. "Your airport taxi is ready, madam." I took my bags and left. I was getting closer to my final destination. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are now approaching Adelaide. Please fasten your seatbelts as we begin to descend. Smoking is now prohibited." In that time, you could still smoke on an airplane. People in the back sections were stubbing their cigarettes out. I tightened my belt and looked out the window. There were rows of hills as yellow as sand, with a mauve haze around them. The city was spilled out at the foot of them and held in check by the blue ocean. I remembered how I had burned nearly all my childhood writings. While burning it all, I had bumped into something I had written when I was still 12 or 13. It was a fantasy story about a boy who had travelled to Australia because his parents had died. He was to meet with his aunt, who lived near Adelaide. It had been surprising to read this, as I had forgotten all about it, and now as the plane was banking down against those hills, I felt I had been there in my mind a long time ago. We rolled over the concrete tarmac. There were the people standing behind a glass wall on the roof. Could I see my friend? I was not sure, but when I trudged down the carpeted corridor, there he was, jumping in front of me. We had a big hug. Everything was swirling under me and around me. I felt I was going to pass out. Maybe it was all that taking off and landing from the last 2 days. The time differences, the big trip, my first trip, all by myself, and seeing my friend at last. "I need to sit down," I whispered. He guided me to the nearest seats in that carpeted corridor. And we sat. He went and got my luggage, and we sat some more. He made a phone call and told my host family that I had arrived. Finally, he reminded me that my host family was waiting for us with sandwiches, and that he had only meant to quickly come and get me, and here we were sitting and sitting. I was too wiped out. I looked down the now empty corridor, his words penetrating to me slowly. I was so happy to sit there that I could have stayed the night. But indeed, we had to go a bit further. I let him guide me like a zombie. "Welcome to Australia." My host family stood outside to meet me when the car drove up. I had brought some flowers for the lady of the house, and kissed her on both cheeks. "You must be thirsty. Come and have some tea." I was taken into the concrete-paved backyard, where there was a table set up, with a selection of tuna sandwiches and tea. I was too tired to be hungry, but I managed to have a taste of their kind efforts. Strange, it was so light and hot, I could hear insects buzzing around me. I had left a sleety, drizzly, dark world behind me, in Holland. After all, it was almost February, and still winter in Holland, and here I was full summer, and Adelaide was not far away from a desert. But there was more on the reception program. My friend was living further away in a share house with some friends, and they were giving a barbecue in my honor that afternoon. It's a party, and you cannot say no to it, since it is especially for you. What fun is it for them, if I am such a mess? And what is a barbecue? Isn't that with meat? I hardly eat any meat. I have difficulty eating it at the best of times. Oh, how I wanted to sleep and somehow be quiet for a while. But my friend was determined. "You have to come. We were meant to be there half an hour ago." After I had a wash and a change of clothes, I finally allowed him to drive me there. Blackwood was in the hills, on the south side of Adelaide. My friend got permission of my host to use the car one more time to take me there. These people had also been his host family when he first arrived from Holland, so they knew him well, and him and I had been high school friends. When we arrived there, maybe 10 young people were spread out along a large and untidy, prickly lawn. The grass was yellow and hard, as I was invited to sit on some old blankets. The cooking had been done on a greasy iron plate in the back of the yard, and they had started without us. I got a plate handed to me with some cold lamb chops on it. They were a little burnt. I poked a small piece of edible meat out from the center of this chop with my finger and sat there chewing. I let the talking go past me. I was not used to conversing in English. The evening wore on, and finally I could excuse myself and get my friend to drive me back. He drove me to a lookout to show me the Adelaide lights. It was nice enough, but I was past appreciating those things. My plan at the moment is to last the 2 years I signed up for with the government of Australia. I may return after that to Holland. Yes, I feel a connection with you, but I don't know what it is all about. I hope to work it out by just going along and living. There is so much for me to learn. I want to get to know myself and become a better person. Please don't worry about all this now and let me go and rest. After some more discussion, he drove me back to my host family. I washed quickly and fell asleep on top of the bed. My first day in Australia was over. After about 3 months with my host family, I went to live in the share house with my Australian friend, and then I had to go and pay some rent for a room, which I had. And I had to find some work because I didn't have any welfare. The problem remained that I had to get some work as I had no other income. My friend suggested that I go with him to the Flinders University the next day. He was doing a filmmaking course there. To put my name down for some possible work. When I got there, somebody gave me a brief interview and handed me a form to fill in. "And how tall are you?" The employment officer was looking me up and down. "What job do you need that for?" I wanted to know. "And my weight too?" I looked at the form in disbelief. "You never know, we get all sorts of requests," she stated. "You want a job, don't you?" I was wondering what this would get me into, but I filled it in. The phone rang. This is at the house of the share house. "Claire speaking," I said, expecting to have to explain my presence in this new household. "Are you the person who applied for work at Flinders University recently?" A voice said at the other end. "Yes," I replied. I was surprised. I had filled the form in only a couple of days ago. "I'm looking for a person with your measurements to be a model for my next sculpture. I'm an artist working on my next exhibition." "I don't do nude posing," I said, thinking, here we go, the first available job in a new country. The voice at the other end went on. "It would be entirely private, there are no class situations." Dirty old artist, I thought. "You just want me to pose all for yourself." "You would have to meet me and decide for yourself," he added. "At least give me a chance. You sound like the person I have been waiting for." After some consideration, I decided to meet him. It was hard for migrants to get a job. I should not turn the first offer down without some investigation. I agreed to visit him at his home where he lived with his mother. "I have this idea of doing sculpture in shiny pink polyester," he said. His bony, sensitive fingers were holding a china cup in a small kitchen. I shuddered at the pink polyester. But he was looking okay. He was about 5 years older than me, clean-shaven, with a lot of freckles on a smooth, pale skin, and almost red hair. He was a little shorter than me, glasses, pale grey-green eyes, with a full, red, almost girlish mouth. He went on, "And the sculpture is only half a lady, but she's glued to a polished steel mirror, and from some angles she will look complete, from other angles incomplete. I want to call it Alice Through the Looking Glass." He was obviously excited about the project. "Come into my studio," Ellen said as he made for the back door. "It's really a shed, you know, but I can do everything there." This was a decidedly more private place, but still there was a sense of peace and wonder. Everything to do with casting and moulding, polishing and mounting was there. A large frame and bags of clay were sitting in the middle. "This is going to be the looking glass sculpture," he explained. "It will be done in clay first and then cast in polyester." He added, "I also make paintings." "Oh, I would like to see them," I said. "Do you have any around?" I could not see any paintings anywhere. "Yes, but they are in my bedroom. The studio here is too dusty." He now took me to his bedroom. Meticulous work was standing against the walls, on top of chairs and dressers. The single bed was tidy but simple. I found the designs a little stilted, as he pre-planned and repainted a subject several times. But that was also part of the charm of the work. I could not help but warm to this person. He had a few things to teach me in regards to painting. He seemed simple and sincere. Maybe he could help me get back into art school. I agreed to pose for him. Life-size pink polyester it was. I don't know what mysterious reason drove him to that idea, because it was not a financial success. He exhibited it in a few places, and I think it is stored somewhere, because Alan made all his artwork to last for centuries. He recently sent me a picture of it that he was moving house. While I was posing for the statue, he made me read Alice Through the Looking Glass, the book by Lewis Carroll, who also wrote Alice in Wonderland. The call to get involved in the world of magic may have been activated by the making of that statue. It's hard to tell exactly how all that came together, and at times I still wonder, but it's a fact that not long after that I did get pulled into powerful changes that led me down the medicine path of plants and fairies. The statue itself almost makes me think of gatekeeper between the unseen world and the world of form. However, I have run ahead of myself. This will come later. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Bye.